Here's my agenda. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and let me ask Mark Sassway to lead us in that tonight.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Yeah, Mark, if we put you at the microphone, then we could test whether you can recite it by yourself. Sort of like singing the national anthem with nobody else. All right, let us open with general public comment. We will start with folks in the room and then go to the people online. If you are online and want to get into the queue, please press the raise hand button. But we will start with Doug. Doug, is yours related to Agenda 7? Or is this a different one? Okay.
I'm going to speak on Agenda 7. This is just general.
Okay. All right. And state your name, please.
Doug Flaherty, TahoeCleanAir.org. Everything I say today is certainly no reflection on the fine job that our fire district and our sheriff's office is going to do when it comes to wildfire evacuation. They'll do everything they can to make sure we're safe to their capability. Having said that, I just wanted to preface that with my upcoming comments about Agenda Item 7. But having said that, we are under assault. Lake Tahoe Basin is under assault. The game plan for the last many years since the 2012 regional plan has been to turn the Lake Tahoe Basin into a basin of private resorts. It's happening all over the basin. It happens quietly, and it happens sometimes under the guise of false flags and phrases like workforce housing. Workforce housing, that has nothing to do with low-income housing, folks. For any person in the community that sees the term workforce housing, they go, oh, isn't that great for our retail people and our gardeners and our just general blue collar workers? They can't afford to live here. But it's a false flag that the TRPA carries for us. And we're going to wake up in the basin and Incline Village in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and you're going to have 5-story condos lining Tahoe Boulevard. You're going to have private resorts all around the lake. We have to mobilize and we have to push back. So grab your favorite nonprofit, donate to them. And I just want to give a shout out to the Sierra Club. They're working behind the scenes. They're doing great things for the lake. And I'll tell you, we're in deep trouble if we don't stay involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Oh, and I didn't say, but you're limited to 3 minutes.
Usually not too long. Ann Nichols, North Tahoe Preservation Alliance, and I was at the TRPA webinar today, which was discussing the Phase 3 housing. And John Hester from the TRPA was giving the initial talk, and he was saying the TRPA has no ability to tax. To which I asked in the online question and answer, I said, well, then how come you've gone to the legislature this year and asked them to change the law to allow basically T-bids or property investment districts, which would be a tax. It's currently not allowed in Nevada, so they need to get Nevada to get on board. It's allowed in California in Placer County. And we have a T-bid over there that added 1% to all retail groceries, liquor, 2% to short-term rentals. They want to do this all around the lake, the TRPA does, to create an ongoing sustainable funding mechanism to allow more VMT because they are over the limit for vehicle miles traveled right now. So what he said is, as an answer to this question, he said, well, we are allowed to ask for other local government entities which I would love. I'm gonna ask John where it says that anywhere, but I'm just kind of trying to get you guys on board. The legislature is meeting in February and they want to tax us to promote a really, transportation, they want $3 billion, TART Connect, 16 million this year. So we've really got to stay wise about this and watch it and show up to the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Anyone else in the room for general public comments? All right, we'll go online. Rhonda Tyser.
The track record shows that TRPA and Washoe County will approve their own housing and building agendas regardless of the concerns of IVCB residents. But this is because they have little choice. The 2 California counties at Lake Tahoe, El Dorado County and Placer County are required to adhere to California building and development policies to get their state funds. Thus, TRPA must comply with California legislation. To keep things unified, TRPA expands California housing rules to the rest of the Lake Tahoe counties, Washoe, Douglas, and Carson. In the past 17 years, California has worked to solve its housing crisis by enacting legislation that undermines zoning for single-family residences, increases housing density, and takes housing rules and regulations from local control to state control. SB 375 encourages denser housing near transportation hubs. SB 35 in 2017 requires all California cities and counties to build a state mandated number of affordable housing units. SB 8 extends the Housing Crisis Act and curtails local government's ability to downzone, meaning to rezone a commercial property to residential. SB 9 allows up to 4 homes on a single family lot and subdivision of lots into 2 smaller than minimum size. SB 10 allows for agencies to upzone transit-rich areas and allows up to 2 ADUs on each parcel. Because TRPA is dependent upon federal funds and California funds, TRPA must comply with California's housing laws. And as long as California legislators are in control of housing and IVCB, we residents have no sway over what is built in our village.
All right, thank you, Rhonda. Pamela Signonis.
Pamela Sigdenis. Yes, thank you. I'd like to underscore a few points that have already been raised, and this is specific to the recent changes that are being put forward by Washoe County to conform with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency's new housing amendments. It is very critical that all residents understand that these are going to be wide-ranging, very significant changes to land use. I'd like to remind everybody that it is not the TRPA or the agency's development consultants who will bear the costs of these significant land use changes. Washoe County and the residents of Washoe County pay for the firefighting, emergency planning, evacuation, and infrastructure. These are very significant budget items that will be affected by these very significant amendments that are being pushed to fast track through Washoe County. I would really encourage everyone to think about getting in touch with your county leadership. Please be involved in this process. We need to stay very close to the planners. We need to write and speak with our commissioners. This particular environmental and infrastructure analysis that needs to be done has not been completed. I'd like to really underscore we should not fast track ordinances and housing land use changes that could potentially endanger and put public safety at risk. This is not smart. We need to ask the county to put the needs of the residents and those who work here first We need the analysis before those land use changes. Thank you very much.
And I see no other hands and no one else in the room, so that is the conclusion of general public comments. Let's now go to announcements from Commissioner Hill. Alexandra, I don't see, you know what, I don't, maybe I can get a better picture, but anyway, Commissioner Hill, are you on? Alexandra, did she forward anything to you?
Roxanne, I do not see Chair Hill on. I believe she's
Can't hear
traveling
you.
at the moment. Can you hear me?
Now we're getting it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no problem. I did not receive any update at this time. I believe Chair Hill is traveling at this time, but if she does send me something, I'll make sure to mention that at the end.
All right, thank you. So let's go to agenda item number 5, which is our public safety updates. I see the Sheriff's Department has leaped to the fore, so we'll let them go first.
For the record, Jeff McCaskill, Sergeant with the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Just some quick updates as we start the new year is that we had a little bit of a reshuffle in our front office. Chief Deputy Corey Sofrino is now over our operations division. So he's my immediate boss. Well, not immediate, but above my lieutenant and captain boss. So we had a little bit of a shuffle. Chief Deputy Sofrino formerly was a captain of the Incline Village substation. So he's well aware of what we're dealing with up here in Incline Village. And then in that shuffle, one of our chief deputies, Chief Deputy Mosley, will be retiring next month, and Captain Darren Rice will be promoted to chief deputy in his place. We do have a vacancy currently for captain in the Incline Village substation, and Lieutenant Cola Curcio is back from training in Louisville, Kentucky. So he's back with us currently. And he is my immediate supervisor. With that being said, crime in Incline Village is relatively good. We had an incident this past weekend, as many of you are aware of, someone in custody for that incident, an isolated incident in itself. And then there was an incident 2 weeks ago that got a lot of public comment on Facebook, I know, of somebody skipping out on a tab and then being seen around the community. We thank you for your notifications of that individual. That individual also ended up in our custody as well. So with that being said, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them if I can. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Chris for the cab. We heard this week that there were quite a number of DUIs arrested or that you captured this past week or so.
So we had we shift change we rotate our deputies every 4 months. So 2 weeks ago, we got a whole new crew on my shift here, which my shift is evenings, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we work every other Sunday. So yes, I'm proud to represent this great shift that's working currently. That they're doing a great job enforcing DUIs, which is a priority for the sheriff in our new fiscal year to do DUI enforcement. And yes, we have quite the handful of DUIs on this side of the week.
We heard that there was, Chris Wood again, there were 4 DUIs on 4 nights. Is that an uncommon pattern?
I would have to pull the stats exactly to tell you that. And I don't know if they were consecutive nights, but yeah, there has been a handful of DUIs in the last couple of weeks, just on my team that I can speak of.
Right. Any other questions online?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Kevin Lyons from the CAB. What are the shift hours during which you pick up those DUIs?
So the shifts are essentially 5 to 5 is when we're doing the shift up and down the mountain. But those are coming. 2 of my deputies just cleared. I thought they were going to get another one just now, but they just cleared that stop. So yeah, they're they're eager, and we just want to make sure everybody on the road is as safe as possible. And getting those DUIs off the road is going to help all the citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lesson learned, don't overdrink, pay your tab and tip your waitresses. All right, let's go on to the fire. And I see Chief Summers is here. And I have asked Chief Summers to spend a little more time with us today. bringing us up to speed on North Lake Tahoe Fire Prevention District's participation in the Los Angeles fires, and then also on lessons learned. And then also to take questions. To every fire, we learn something else to worry about. So Chief Summers.
Great, thank you. Ryan Summers for the record. So we can jump right into it. Not only did North Lake Tahoe Fire help with LA, but the entire basin did. We sent 17 engines out of the basin down there and quite a few overhead folks. Everybody has since returned as of yesterday. We've got everybody back from North Lake Tahoe Fire. The engines came back some time ago. A lot of questions obviously have come out since this incident in Southern Cal. The biggest one that seems to be imploding my email is water. Are we going to run out of water? I'm crazy if I'm going to tell you that no, we are not. Absolutely, do we have the potential to run out of water? There's only so much water for this community. And none of these water systems around the lake are designed to fight a catastrophic fire like that. So the next question's been, well, can I put an exterior sprinkler system on my house, but IVGID won't allow it? That's true. We are not encouraging exterior sprinkler systems to be put on houses. And no, the water system could not handle that, because if something does happen and where you have to evacuate and that continuously runs, that's depleting the water that we need to suppress these fires. So I know it's a lot of hard knocks, if you will, for some folks, because they really want to put this type of system on their house, but it is not conducive to the water system itself. So we cannot allow those, and IVGID will not allow those. I will tell you though, we have a very, very good water system. We've got quite a few tanks around town. The smallest one is 750,000 gallons. The others are 1 million gallons. So we've got quite a bit of water. I did have a meeting today with IVGID on this subject and asked quite a few questions about the water system. Do they gear up? Yes, they do. Do they gear up for when Davis Fire was on the other side of the hill? And I'm not going to say it was threatening Incline. But they started topping off all of their water tanks. They topped them off during Caldor. They topped them off during Angora. They're on it. They stay on it, and they're there to help us in any way we can when it comes to these water systems. So that was good news on that front. So lessons learned. It's really too early to say. Official lessons have come out. I know there's plenty of stuff online about what's going on and how things happen, but that's not official. So I'm not going to comment on any of those. I'm sure there's going to be quite a few lessons learned coming out of this for sure. I foresee a lot of, hopefully some changes to the building construction down there. We've done a very good job up here with our building construction and our requirements when it comes to new structures, correct? So we are a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to that. So that's really good. And then there's always more coming out with that. Home hardening, all of that. There's some stuff I believe in the chat. It has to do with landscape and professional landscape questions that can be asked or talked about for the vegetation around your house. We are doing some very good work up here, and I'm not saying that because I'm the fire chief for North Lake Tahoe Fire. Yes, I'm a little biased, but if you look around, our fuels program is very aggressive. That's a lot of things that people are not realizing or looking at when they talk about certain catastrophic incidents in Tahoe. And yeah, I mean, absolutely, anything can happen. But we are ahead of the game with our fuels program. We're ahead of the game with defensible space. That's a whole class in itself. If anybody has any questions on that, please get a hold of us and we can educate you and help you out when it comes to your property with defensible space. We're looking decent when it comes to our vegetation and our fuels reduction that we've done. So we'll just wait to see what comes out from LA. It was quite the task getting all of our folks riled up when it's so cold here and snow on the ground to go a wildland fire, but they all stepped up to the plate. We were able to send that many resources. I was pretty proud of that. That's a pretty good thing. Went down and helped them for sure. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Again, it's pretty early for lessons learned, but I can definitely keep the group apprised as that starts coming out.
Okay, questions from the cab, Diane Becker.
So one of the things that disturbed me in those fires was the evacuation situation, especially on Pacific Coast Highway. And I come from that area. So most of the people that I worked with lived in either Palisades, Brentwood, or Malibu. And And I know many people who have been adversely impacted, including hearing the day that people were ordered out of their cars and told or suggested they leave their cars and run because the fire was coming up. And that's what we keep talking about as one of our fears up here is evacuation capacity. What happened there when you saw what happens when you have terrible winds and no little exit opportunity, does that impact maybe what we can expect to look at in terms of the future, in terms of budgeting for an evacuation analysis or your recommendations to the county?
Well, I mean, yeah, we have evacuation problems, and I know that. Again, I can talk to the county to see if they can try to come up with some better funding for an evacuation analysis. Absolutely. We've been pushing them as an agency to do as such. It just comes down to funding. And again, I know everybody's tired of this answer, but evacuations doesn't rely with North Etola Fire. That relies with Washoe County. Emergency management. I think they're doing what they can right now with the tools that they've been and the cards they've been dealt to deal with such an activity as that. But yeah, evacuation is a huge deal for us. And like I've said in the past, and this is very hard for people to understand and or listen to, in my opinion, when we ask for evacuations and we only ask for a certain area, you've got to abide by that certain area, because then we can get those folks out, then we can go to the next section, and we can go to the next section. But if everybody gets on the road at once, yeah, we are going to have the exact same problems. So I don't know, I don't have any good answers just yet. The only thing I can say is that a lot of this does come to the homeowners and the occupants of Incline and Crystal Bay on them too. Keep your gas tanks full. We got, a comment on the last evacuation plan that there's nothing in the plan to keep your car full. Well, I'm sorry, but it's not my job to tell you when to eat dinner either. You got to be responsible and have your cars full of gas, especially in a time when it's being forecasted that such an incident could happen, just like in California. The Santa Anas were forecasted. They actually moved resources down there, pre-positioned resources for it. They prepared the best they could, and they still ran into huge issues when it comes to evacuation. That's probably the same scenario that could happen up here. I'm not going to say it will not.
Let me just follow up. One more question on that. So this is a request from me, and I know from a lot of people who I know who've been working on the evacuation issue. We know that it is not North Lake Tahoe Fire that's responsible. We know that it's the county, and we know that Kelly Echeverria really would like to get a study done also from the county. So the question is, we need help from you to say that it's their responsibility, because I will tell you that when I go to different county meetings and push on this, I am consistently told that the fire district is taking care of it. And I have said, the fire district is responsible to fight the fire, not to plan for the fire. And that it really is a thing that the county needs to budget for. They are doing their budgeting, as you know, right now. And just as a resident, I ask that you do everything you can to encourage that. And I would thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And anytime you go to a meeting and they tell you that, I want their name and number because I want to call.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh, good.
we have that.
Excuse me 1 second. I have to write that one down.
SO.
Chris, go ahead.
It's recorded. Chris Wood with the CAB. Real easy and quick question about, were there water shortages for fighting Davis or Caldor?
Not that I've heard, no. We did not have any water shortages when it came to those.
Were they getting water out of the lake? I can see planes scooping it down.
For Davis?
I can't say for sure that Davis is certainly.
Well, just from the air support from Davis. Caldor, I take that back. There was one issue in South Lake when it came to water. South Lake PUD, or stupid, I think is their abbreviation. I can't make that up. They did have an issue with the Caldor, and I believe that's already been mitigated, and they've remedied that issue. So there was one incident with Caldor. Yes, I apologize for that one.
Are you sure they weren't scooping water out of the lake here or Washington Lake?
Washington, for sure.
No,
They were doing both.
I have a picture of a plane for the Davis fire coming into the lake. So yes, they were,
You're talking a fixed wing in the aircraft using water?
guys.
Well, Mr. Wood, are you talking, when you say using water, only water for Davis was from aviation that I know of.
Right, there were no water systems. There were no.
No.
Yeah.
The only water system within the basin that supports anything outside of the basin that I know of is Marlette Lake supplies Virginia City.
Anyone else on the cab?
Oh, I'll ask one. Denise Davis. In the past, we had some communication issues. Do we have all of that worked out as far as actual equipment and who each agency talks to?
Communications as far as our communications or?
Either our local, our extended, we had issues with California ordering the evacuation at South Shore and didn't tell Nevada that they were.
Oh.
Those kind of.
So like a process, that has been hammered out, believe it or not. I was on quite a few committees when it came to that and how we dealt with that. And we ended up actually hosting California and Nevada here in Incline at the Paris Hall for a meeting on that exact same thing. So that part has been worked out. They're working much better hand in hand. When you say communications, that it's huge. There's a lot going on. I know there's some talk about cell phones and cell phone towers going down during disasters. That is in the new plan that they contact cell providers ASAP to get those, what we call cows out, or the cell on wheels to come out and supply cell coverage during incidents. Because the power going down is going to be an incident like the cell towers. So yeah, we're checking away at those things slowly but surely as we go through some of these drills and or what we see other communities going through.
And Denise Davis again. I know that a few years ago, the county needed to either get a new radio license or change radios and towers because not all of the equipment talk to each other. Are we making progress on that?
News to me, that would have been many, many moons ago when they were still on what they call the VHF spectrum, and that's all been handled. They're on a totally different enclosed. It's very technical, but a trunking system. And as far as I know, that's working very well, and it's actually being built out for the second time as we speak statewide. So we have statewide communications. You can go to my truck, go to the sergeant's truck right now, and you can talk to Las Vegas, no problem.
Roxana Dunn. A few weeks ago, we had a fire on Tomahawk that some people who were coming down skiway and hit congestion thought, oh, we'll take the shortcut on Tomahawk and go around it, only to find they were dead center in the fire. There were not enough police available to both evacuate the people close to that house and also manage the traffic on skiway. They eventually called in some additional people from the sheriff's office that came from Reno and arrived about 40 minutes later. But this concerns us if we had a true evacuation situation, and we have a situation where you're trying to govern this thing of, we want this area to evacuate first, and now we're going to let these people out. Are we going to have people with authority out there to do that? Or should we have what's the name of your group, Denise, the citizen CERT thing? Huh? CERT. Should CERT, what should we do about that? We seem to be insufficiently manned to carry that out.
Well, this is kind of more the sergeant's bailiwick, and he's more than welcome to come up here and help me with this. So I'm not a single man in a butt kicking car, a single lane guy in a butt kicking car. So, but I would say we're going to have enough, and I'll let him take over here in just a second. But from what I've seen from our side, when we've asked for help from Washoe County, it may not be Washoe County right that very second, because they're going to institute their mutual aid or automatic aid plans with Placer County Sheriffs, Douglas County. They're all going to come over and start helping until they can get more staff up here. Then they have staff strictly dedicated to evacuations, and I'll let you take over with that one.
Yes, Jeff McCaskill.
Kings Beach is the closest, but I realize it's over a state line. Is there any chance that can help? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
we have MOUs with all of our local cooperators, so we're going to ask for their assistance. And to put things in a little bit more perspective, several years ago when I was a young man working up here, there were only 2 of us. Right now, every shift that we are staffing in Incline Village has 4 deputies and 1 sergeant. So a drastic build up in our staffing up here. So better hands now than in past practice. And we will be asking for assistance from our agency from the valley to come up and help us should a catastrophic event occur.
Okay, fingers crossed. I'm sorry. That was I just asked it. All right, anyone online? Kathy Julian. Oh, I'm sorry. We have someone in the room and I don't know your name. Come on up you have to speak to the microphone so that all those folks who are still in their pajamas can hear you.
Tanya Berwager. I'm a homeowner here, and I'm very concerned about the fire predicament and the water. So we have holding tanks around us, and it's a gravity feed situation, same as Palisades. And do we have the super, I don't know the proper terminology, the super duper water that replenishes the tanks as they're going down quickly? I don't know if we have that or not.
So, yeah, great. Thanks for the question. Ryan Summers. So that was my meeting today with IBGID. Yes, we have water tanks around town, as I was saying earlier. The smallest one's 750,000 gallons. The others are 1 million gallons. It would take, they have the pumps. They have the pumps, the capabilities, and they can replenish a tank in about 3/4 of a day. So that's some pretty good water, if you ask me, and an advantage to keep that pump up and running, or those tanks full. So yeah, we have that capability. And yeah, it's a gravity fed system. And I'll tell you what, I'll take that over any other system right now, because when we start flowing water down on Lakeshore right now, let's just say we're actually training and we go start flowing water on Lakeshore, we have to tell IBGID we're flowing water, just so they know that they don't have a leak. But they also may have to turn down that pressure. I call it a gizmo. That's not probably the proper term, but they'll be turning these pressure reducer valves down, because otherwise we will get so much water pressure, it will blow the tank on the fire engine. So we've got a great water system, and I personally like the.
Hydrants were you using at the time in consecutive, at the same time?
It'd only take 1 hydrant for us to blow our engines.
But if we had a big fire, how many hydrants could you?
I can't answer that question. I don't know. It depends on where the fire is, depends on how big the fire is. And we aren't gonna be stopped and hooked up to a hydrant and continuously pumping from it. We're gonna stop, fill up, and go on and keep moving with the fire itself.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Stephen Ross, my question has to do with some of the fires that I've been seeing recently. California especially are in high wind incidents. And I'm concerned about the cause of those fires often being power lines. And I was wondering if you have any input in NV Energy about putting some of our power lines underground.
So a few years ago, the fire chiefs wrote a Senate bill, SB 129, I believe it was, which became law, that NV Energy start working on their infrastructure and start beefing it up. And we being the fire department, or ends up now private contractors, can start removing the vegetation from the power lines themselves below the power lines, so that if they smack together and the spark was to drop, hopefully they're dropping in a very minimal, if not at all, vegetation. So we've come up with that plan for the vegetation removal with them, and we've been working with them on that for the last 3 to 4 years. They've been a great partner when it comes to that. But when it comes to underground utilities, we can ask all day long. Again, it's going to come back to a funding issue. It's very expensive. I heard it's $3 to $4 million a mile or something like that. I'd have to revisit those figures to actually bury or get power lines underground. So we can ask all day long, just like you can, but we have no enforcement to make them do that. I will say that there's been a very progressive group in Glenbrook that have taken it upon themselves, and they have raised monies in Glenbrook to bury the power lines down there, and they're actually very successful, and that program is just now starting, or that project is just now starting down there. That's all been funded by the citizens of that subdivision, if you will.
Is there federal money?
I'd have to ask Indy Energy. I don't know off the top of my head on that.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the room with a question? All right, we'll go online. Kathy Julian.
Thanks. This may be a question as much for the sheriff as for Chief Summers. My knowledge is that the campfire moved at like 80 football fields per minute, and Palisades, according to the internet, moved at about 5 football fields per minute. Given in a wind event, and given that, I have doubts about the ability to evacuate Incline Village in segments in specific areas. And I worry about that because I would hate to be in an area that somehow is not able to get out because we're not the priority as per whatever. And I think that's, how workable is that kind of section by section approach if you have these wind events and you have this speed of fire moving through the basin? Thank you.
I mean, it's gonna come down to the topography of where the fire is, the vegetation where the fire is. Again, you know, those down in LA and all the other areas that you've seen these wildland fires, it's a vast majority of land behind that wind event, if you will, or where that wind is coming from. There is a lot of land that fire can travel. We live in a basin, okay? Fire travels in a V for the most part. It starts at the origin and it's gonna go in a V. I don't see that changing for us here in the basin as well, even during a wind event. If we've got a lot of wind coming off the lake, that fire is gonna go upslope and it's gonna be the ridge top more so than it's gonna be spreading horizontally around, if you will. So that, I don't know of a nice way to say this, but that's one of our saving graces here. That's a good thing. Because that's when I say we can start with these areas of town and actually get people to leave versus the whole town at once, because the whole town going up at once is very, very, very unlikely. And we can steer the fire, we can manage the fire, hopefully keep it out of the houses long enough to get people out of a certain area that we've asked to evacuate. That may not be a very popular answer, but that's the one I have for right now, and just the way the fire travels and the topography we live in and past fire behavior.
Okay, officially, I don't know that we can do this, but we will. Helen? We do this?
Again, this is a question for the chief. Helen Neff, Incline Village resident. At one point, we were told that the rec center or the high school would be a gathering point that would be protected by, is that gone or is that still?
That's very much still viable.
And so we will be advised, like if you're in this zone, go to the rec center or
Yes.
go to the high school and there'll be enough
Yes.
trucks and water and men and women and hoses. Okay.
No, we aren't gonna steer you in an area that's not gonna be staffed by us or the sheriff's
But that
office.
could take pressure off the roads.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good point.
Thank you.
You have already asked a question. I'm still gonna let you do it, but I think I'm violating the law, but go ahead. I'm violating the law. Thank you for backing down. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Summers. We do really appreciate all that you do around our area to keep us safe. And I think we're all very happy to know that we contributed to some of the help that was needed down in Los Angeles. And I'm sure Los Angeles will be eager to come help us in our town.
Before.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll go to agenda item number 6, the Tahoe Transportation Plan Input Session. All right, so Alexandra, I need you to put up the slide set that I sent you. So while she's doing that, I'll explain what we're doing. At last month's meeting, Dave Solaro, who is the assistant county manager, came and talked to us about the transportation plan and putting together the budget and priorities for 2025. He asked us to do an exercise to come up with what we would see as our priorities for what he called the buckets, okay? Now, I hope this isn't on his bucket list because he's still a young man and we really need this soon. But in any case, he identified these 8 buckets that, you know, they would be looking at projects within those. So he wants us to prioritize the buckets that we think are most important. I'll go through them as best I can. If somebody else wants to chip in with more detail, good. The first one is the State Route 28 intersections. So this is Lake Tahoe Boulevard running through the center of town. You've all had incidents at those lights, so that's what we're talking about there. The second one is bus stop improvements. I think we're still trying to do ADA stuff there probably, so that people who need to ride the bus because they need help, get help. Multi-use path connectivity. So these are those little paths that the county keeps calling multi-use. So hooking those together so it makes it easier for people to get around by foot. Winter maintenance is more of the, I think the primary thing we're talking about here is clearing the multi-use paths because that is not typically done. This year, I understand they have been doing it around the schools as a priority, so that's been good. But they typically have not done like Lake Tahoe Boulevard, and that, you know, has been an issue for some time. Local intersections and roadways. So these would be other intersections not on SR 28. So if you want to vote for SR 28, put it in that bucket. If you want to vote for everybody's favorite intersection, Village and Southwood, you would put it in that one. Transit service and parking. So these are the bus lines, and I don't know exactly what they're doing here. I hope it's not putting in parking lots, but anyway, there's that. The Main Street program is the program, and I see Linda's here. So Linda Offerdahl and her group are trying to make things better. Hold on, I'm getting input. The Mobility Hub project is under transit service and parking. And the Main Street, so the Main Street program is trying to redevelop, I guess, and do some things to make Main Street a bit more attractive, and I'm going to guess safer. We're going to throw safer in there, right? Okay. And then technology and data needs. This is just the infrastructure of our cell phones and that sort of thing. Is that good? Okay. So here's how we're going to do this. Go ahead and go to the next slide. You guys have all you need, right? Have you got a pen? Got it. Here, you need a pen that can be seen. Okay, good. All right. All right. We have 2 objectives then. First, we're going to decide on 2, maybe 3 buckets. It'll just depend on how the vote goes, how many we do. And then, so we'll say these are the ones we think need priority, just the general scheme. And then on objective number 2, for each of the ones that we prioritize, we will just have people submit general comments on why specifically you said that one needs to be attended to. So we'll just get a quick list of that and pass that on to Dave to let him know how our community feels. All right. So go to the next slide. So you will be given, I'm going to just give you a slew. I'm giving you Sharpies so that we can kind of see them up on the board, but pass it around. Try to be very clear. Number 1 is your top priority. Number 2 is your second priority. Number 3 is your third priority. And if you only have one priority, just put 1. If you only have 2, you can just put 2. And I guess I'm out of pens and stuff.
I'm gonna have some.
Because you need more to write on, just, you need to pass it down this way. Okay, so everyone puts in theirs. Folks online, you may submit yours via the chat, and we have people up here who will transcribe it.
You want the first and second explanation?
No explanation, you don't have a place to write, but right now we're just prioritizing the buckets. So put number 1 bucket, number 2 bucket, number 3 bucket.
What do you think is most important?
What you think, which category you would like to see given more importance?
Did they understand?
All right, and folks on the online, you may submit yours via the chat. So try to use enough words from the description to make it clear which one you're voting for.
Encourage the chat, I think. No one's doing the chat.
Chat, don't be shy.
Roxanne, should we do it on the post-it note and this, or?
No, just on the post-it note. No, you don't have to put it on a comment. This is not, oh, I should note, go back 1 slide. Alexandra? All right, see this little blue box back here? If your top priority doesn't make it and you wanna say something you feel strongly about it, please feel free to send an email to dsolaro@washoucounty.gov and explain, fight your case. So this is just a general exercise for us to kind of see. When you've got it, either give it to me and I'll put it up on the wall, or you can, okay? It's our 28th. Bus stops. Yes.
You got the first one.
Yeah, you got the second one?
Yeah.
I get the
I
third
have
one.
no idea. Can you look at the projects and see? Diane, I had the list of projects. Your.
So it includes.
Please.
Walkability. Here, multi-use paths. SR 28 Crystal Bay to Incline Village, so that right path they keep talking about there.
So we got number 1.
Yeah,
So from the
you
76 station.
got to get Alex.
From 76, yeah, 76, yeah, go ahead.
Country Club to Tunnel Creek Cafe.
I'm sorry, could somebody explain multi-use paths again?
I can explain it.
Go ahead, Helen. Yes, Helen's gonna come up to the microphone and read out the projects.
I feel like I live with this report. Okay, multi-use paths includes
Correct.
the one going from Crystal Bay to Incline Village, which is kind of a joint TRPA handed over the grant to Washoe County to study the feasibility on that. And then the rest of the paths are local. So the 76 station to Preston Field, Country Club to the parking for the East Shore Trail, and then completing the Northwood Southwood Loop. And there's a couple other smaller ones. But it's mainly walkability for the town center. Okay.
Don't take that out of my 3 minutes.
Did you get your thing?
I got Christie, you got Lise.
I
Alright.
got that already. One. Okay.
I got Alex. Right.
Have we had any submissions from the
You got
chat yet?
Alex?
We already got lots.
We're writing them.
I
We're
got
getting them down.
Rhonda's next one.
Hold it.
Sure.
I know.
One on the board.
Oh, here, are these ready to post?
Okay.
Oh, good. All right.
3 minutes, that's it? The next one from Christie.
Ready to start talking?
Move it up.
Okay. Linda Offerdahl. IBCBA, and I want to speak to the Main Street program. It's a little confusing.
Can we just try to get the chat like for 2 more minutes, because I can't listen and you want us to listen. And I have to get these. Okay, can you move it up? So, yeah.
But I think if Linda were to explain Main Street, people would understand it better.
I think
then-
that's what we're
then-
trying to do here, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Linda Opperdahl, IBCBA. The Main Street program is a program about redevelopment and revitalization. And I think it got bundled under transportation because of the roundabout redesign project. And that roundabout gets hit repeatedly by cars. So we want to improve the design so it doesn't get hit, and we improve the beautification of it. But beyond that, extending to Main Street, Tahoe Boulevard. The commercial signage is quite an issue. We'd like to clean that up. We'd like to add some beautification to that as well with the lamppost project that would help give signage for the businesses so they wouldn't have to put up those flags and those sandwich board signs. And I think, honestly, it just got bundled under transportation, but I think it's pretty important. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. All right. Mobility Hub is under transit parking. Put it under your number 1.
She goes on.
I did. It's number 1. Yeah, it's my number 2. So.
Shit, hold on. She did, Main Street.
Yeah. Since I was out of town.
Now, while we're having this little catch up on the chat, keep in mind that there are a lot of things that factor into what they finally decide to do. Among them, the manual of traffic safety devices or something like that. You know, you have to have so many people killed at an intersection before you do something about it. It's not quite like that, but you know, those kinds of things. And then, of course, budget and what has to be done infrastructure wise before you can do something else. So we'll see where it happens, but hopefully if we have a, you know, good input. How are we doing? Do we need more?
In there. You just need to be patient here.
Okay.
Go up, you want to, why don't you raise it higher? You do Ramona and I'll do the next one.
I'm sorry.
We're-
What do you want?
You do Ramona Lessick and I'll do one who's
I'll
ever
do
under.
that, Ramona,
But make
okay.
her, but make it go up so that that's at the top.
But did you get Neil Jones?
Yeah, I just handed it to
Okay,
her.
I'll do.
You do Ramona, I'll do Christie, just keep going up.
Yeah, well, Ramona, I gotta get Ramona.
SR
SR
28,
28.
and then 3 is transit.
28.
Transit
Where is
service.
transit? What is transit service?
I don't know. Keep going down,
I
because
will.
the next two are garbage. They're not garbage, they're not.
Submitted number 3.
That's it.
That's what it looks like.
Good job. Okay.
One, I got it.
I mean, I put intersections as number 3. But it is important, particularly village for the speed.
Clearly, because we've got a pretty even distribution here, except for the one. Clearly, all of them are important to us. So the problem is, see if you can stay with me on this. There's only so much money and there's only so much time and so much people. So they have to start somewhere. So that's what we're trying to do. Okay, now what was number 3?
Training for Vanna White's job.
Who's this?
Linda.
You did, what does that mean?
Well, just walkability and the
Okay, so, which one of these columns are you trying to put that into?
The one she had it in.
Oh, the one you had it in, okay. let me- Okay. We're just local intersections, right? Okay.
It's okay, this isn't data, unfortunately.
Not entirely. Hold on. Okay, have we got all the things in? All right, so, this one, didn't put a number 2, so that doesn't go. Then everything else is tied at number 3. All right. Well, this one has 2 or 4. All right, so clearly SR 28 intersections got a lot of votes. The number 2 would be winter maintenance, but it's only 1 more than everything else. So that you've made my job very hard here, because I just wanted to brainstorm a couple of them, and it looks like
Roxana, you
well,
need to
we're
be
not
up
gonna
by
be able to do it that way.
You have to be at the microphone.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so we have a very even distribution except for SR 28 intersections. So I would like to, we'll submit that as our top priority. I'll just tell them that everything else came out pretty even. But let's spend a little bit of time brainstorming. And by brainstorming, I mean, I would like you to give your comment on why why you voted for SR 28 intersections, any particulars. I know you're coming. And I'd like to not do the 3-minute thing, because I'd like it to be more like 30 seconds. Okay, so again, I'm probably violating the law, but anyway, we're brainstorming here. We're not giving large editorial comment. Helen Neff.
You're okay, because that's the agenda item is input, so you can just
Okay.
quickly call on people.
Thank you. All right, if Kevin Lyon says I'm okay, then
We'll bail
You're
you
good.
out, Roxanne.
that's good. Okay.
You just want
Yeah, just,
on intersections.
and
nothing
basically,
else.
state your name and make it clear what you're saying. And I'm going to try to just take the minutes that we get when they do the Zoom download of, they what do you call that? Transcribe the minutes.
AI transcript.
I'm just going to take that and put it in here. So make
Okay.
it clear.
Okay, Helen Neff. State Route 28 intersection improvements. So some improvements have been made already. The crosswalks, we got new signals. Some items were not addressed despite repeated requests. It's not in the plan, but I had asked over and over again for a reduced speed limit. We're the only town center with 35 miles per hour through our town center around the lake. Everyone else has 25 miles per hour. Leading pedestrian intervals, which only means when somebody pushes the button for a walk signal, that all the traffic stops and they get to walk. It only happens when someone pushes the button. So more in the summer than in the winter. Traffic will flow just fine in the winter. And then the State Route 28 Northwood, Southwood, East intersection where 947 is planned. At the very minimum, the flashing beacons that they put in on 2 sides are great, but they should be on 4 sides, because most pedestrian and cyclist incidents happen with turns. And the people need to see the flashing beacons from all 4 sides, which means someone wants to cross the intersection. Those items, Roxanne, I'm very sensitive to what you said about cost. So inexpensive to do all those, relatively inexpensive.
Okay.
We're talking about.
All right. Anyone else want to add something specific on interstate or SR 28? All right, I'll add one. Roxana Dunn, and I am particularly sensitive to the intersection at Southwood, the east end, and 28. the lights that come on, that flash to tell the cars to stop are outside the view of whoever pushed the button. So you have no idea if they're on or not. And I think that that should be something that is relatively easy to remedy. So that would be just one specific comment I'll make under that one. Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Online? We're all thrilled with the rest of SR 28. Okay, great, thank you. Let's go on to our next agenda item then. So this is what I'll be basically telling Dave that the SR 28 intersections were the one area that got more votes. 1, 2, 3, 4. It got 7, and I think the next one got 4.
I'd like to make a comment.
Oh, okay. Diane wants to make a comment. Go ahead.
Well, I just did. Diane Becker, cab member. I wanted to comment that a bunch of people wrote 2 things, that they were in favor of taking, of working out our various multi-use paths, except for excluding one multi-use path, which is the one to Crystal Bay. And the other thing that came up a couple of times was that they're assuming that no one is voting, that they're not voting for the mobility hub. So I think it's important that, I don't know if they're able to save the chats, but if they can, I think it's a good idea for Dave to have that.
Okay. All right. And at this point, if someone wants to say anything about any of the other topics, since we didn't have clear winners, let's go ahead and do that. Yes, sir. Steve?
Well, Stephen Ross, I'm a local resident, and I wanted to make a comment about the multi-use path. It's a little off the connectivity. I'm concerned that the multi-use paths are being used by people that are riding electric motorcycles. I know there's electric bikes that are assisted, but people are using them for motorcycles that travel 45 miles an hour. And I think that's inappropriate. I think we need some kind of regulation to keep the motorcycles on the streets, and if you need to have some kind of arrangement for the bikes that have assistance, well, that's a different story, but the motorcycles don't belong on the multi-use paths.
Okay. Stephen, can I ask you to go back up? Let me ask you to clarify. Okay, so there's class 1 e-bikes, class 2 e-bikes, and class 3 e-bikes. The class 3 e-bikes run with just a throttle. Okay, the other 2 are assist. Are you talking about that type of e-bike, or are you talking literally about gas-powered motorcycles?
Not gas-powered, these are electric.
So they are probably the class 3s.
I think the class 2s don't belong on the multi-use pathways either. Even the class 1s are going 15 to 20 miles an hour, and that's too fast on those paths. But the others are much too powerful to be on a multi-use path.
Thank you. Doug, did you want to speak to this topic?
Very quickly, yeah.
Okay.
Doug Flaherty, TahoeCleanAir.org. Just on the multi-use paths, just so you know, the Sierra Club and TahoeCleanAir.org made objections to the Lake Tahoe Basin-wide trails analysis on the part of the U.S. Forest Service and other agencies. We challenged that, and we 2 of us, both of the nonprofits, are now able to go forward with their objections because we've been commenting for standing. So that's going to be a long, drawn out process, but there is hope. For one of the big pushbacks was, motorized bicycles, call them class whatever. Also, I put tech data up here because when it comes to transportation projects are not shielded from analysis like other projects that are governed by the TRPA. The TRP has a sham environmental checklist that they check the boxes on, and these projects get passed. But transportation is vulnerable under NEPA, under the national
Options menu.
under the National Environmental Policy Act. So In the past, the courts have given deference to agencies. TRPA thinks that they're exempt from any deference watering down. They think their viewpoint is the viewpoint, but transportation projects all around the lake are really in jeopardy from the deference case that the Supreme Court shut down. So I'll close by saying, when it comes to deference, the courts have had to give agencies deference in their opinion, barring any other technology data or any other data. So in the past, this basin's been able to say, these are our opinions as the Tahoe Transportation District, and we think this, and this should happen. And they don't have any data, but when they go to court, the courts say, well, we have to give deference. And that's going to be changing the transportation project. Thank you.
All right, Kathy Julian.
Yeah, I guess I just will repeat what Diane Becker said. It was a little confusing, at least looking at the slide on the Zoom call. Transit service was a separate bullet from parking. And if what they mean by that is the mobility hub, of course, that would not be a priority. And the same thing with the multi-use path. They're kind of burying key projects that are not a priority for many people in town, in with others that would be a priority. So I think one needs to take their list with a grain of salt because there's too much packed into it, and one would need to really break it out a bit. But that's what I think.
All right, appreciated. Elise Fett.
Hi, I have watched, and I have many, many, many pictures over the years of people trying to ride their bikes to and from work, whether it's an e-bike or whether it's a regular bike, or people that are doing scenic rides, whether they're doing it around the lake or just trying to get back and forth and see things. And it is extremely dangerous. It is basically the death gauntlet between Crystal Bay and Incline Village. And the quote multi-use path is not what the trail between Crystal Bay and Incline Village should be. It is a commuter path. We are trying to get cars off of the road, whether it be commuters or whether it be people that are visitors that are just trying to sightsee. We need them off the road. In order to do that, we need to allow e-bikes on the path. The path needs to be 8 foot wide, so it's extremely safe for people that are going at higher speeds on e-bikes. It is not for dogs, people with children, not for walkers. Walkers have other places that they can hike. It is for commuting, and it is to reduce the traffic, and it's a safety feature that with bollards on each end, it gives us an evacuation route out, a second evacuation route. We have had winter last year, we had over 4 hours that no vehicles could get through Crystal Bay because of an accident that blocked it. We need that for access for emergency vehicles and for cars to evacuate in a fire. So please don't call it a multi-use path. Please consider it as a commuter trail, bike road, commuter road, evacuation road. It's not a multi-use path. That's not what we need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I have a comment.
Denise.
Denise Davis. I'm gonna stand up here for winter maintenance. I just wanna share my experiences the last couple of days. Okay, so we got kind of a skiff of snow in the last day or two. And today, just in a couple of drives across town, there were people, as always, walking on Lakeshore Boulevard, walking on Country Club Drive on the non-UNR side of the street, even though there's a path which was not cleared. On Friday, I was driving on Lakeshore Boulevard, and there were, I believe I counted 10 people walking not along the side of Lakeshore Boulevard, but down the middle of Lakeshore Boulevard in the oncoming traffic lane. So I guess they wanted to see the car that was going to hit them before they got hit. But honestly, I'm not kidding when I say there was a group of like 10 walking towards the Hyatt in the oncoming lane, in the middle of the oncoming lane. And this happens because the paths do not get cleared immediately. And I know that it's hard to understand when you don't maybe experience this, but as soon as our snow gets walked on, we now have ice pretty much for the rest of the winter, because we have a lot of places that don't see sun during the winter, between the sun being low and the trees being tall. And so I just, again, want to alert our county to the fact that, yes, it's important to get pathways cleared to schools, but it's also important to get these main pathways cleared immediately, because if we're trying to get our visitors out of their cars, that's where they're going to walk. And once it gets walked on and it gets icy, then they're going to walk in the roadway, which is hazardous for all of us, because the road can be slick just like the path. And if I can't stop, I'm hitting somebody. So my vote is winter maintenance. Thanks.
Yes, I saw you do that. Totally illegal, but I will make the change.
Do 7 infractions equal a felony?
I don't know, as I keep saying, throw me in that there briar patch in terms of throwing me off the cab. Okay. Thank you so much for your inputs. Obviously, we have a lot of issues here, and I appreciate the comments. I think that comments are always very helpful for getting these points across. One more time, would you go back to the slide before this one? And just so people can get the Dave Solaro email. Alexandra? Okay, anyway, if you would like to say more or be specific about something, it's dsolaro@washoecounty.gov. Washoe County all smushed together. Okay, all right, you can kill the slides and we'll go on to agenda item number 7, which is the Tahoe Area Input Plan. Our Tahoe Area Plan amendments. There have been, let me introduce this a little bit. There have been a couple of informational meetings that have been held here in the last month by the county officials explaining what these amendments are, et cetera. Is there anybody here that needs them explained? And I'm not going to be able to do them exact justice, but I will try. Okay, everybody in the room seems good. All right, so I'm going to hope for this part of the agenda that everybody is relatively knowledgeable or will come up to speed during this course. All I want here are public comments. Just let them know, you know, what your concerns are, what your support is, if you are supportive, just anything about it. In general, just to introduce it, these amendments are to change the height, density, and coverage requirements for buildings built only in the town center. Now, as far as I know, the town center is special area 1. There's multiple town centers. So it might, special area 1 is inside the Northwood Southwood loop on 28 south of Alder. So from this side of Alder down to 28. And special area 2 is the commercial area there with the post office. I don't know whether it includes the school, but I'm going to guess it does. So those are parts of town that could be affected by this. If your property is 100% deed restricted, okay, here's TRPA has put forth their code changes. They're asking the counties to bring their area plans in compliance with the code changes that TRPA has put forward. The county has some, but not a lot of ability to modify these codes as long as they can show that it accomplishes the same goal. The goal, and I'll use the word ostensibly here for Doug's pleasure, the goal ostensibly is to promote workforce housing by allowing 100% deed restricted buildings to be 65 feet high, where it used to be 56, to be a density defined by the developer in terms of the number of units on a parcel, whereas it used to be 25 units per acre. And then coverage doesn't really apply to us, I don't think, because we do not have the storm sewer system that's required to do the coverage changes. So those are kind of the key things. The deed restrictions are supposed to help people who need help getting into a house here in town, help them get into it. I don't really want to go into the deed restrictions in great detail here. There are 3 categories. Affordable basically is less than $72,000 a year. Moderate is less than $109,000 a year. And achievable is no limit on income, but it does require that you live in town. So those are, that's my recap of those amendments. I hope I've tried to be as fair and forthright on that as I can be. In any case, again, we're just going to submit this part of tonight's meeting to the planning department at Washoe County to let them know what people are thinking. So that's all I'm going to say. We'll just open it up to comments on this topic. Doug Flaherty.
Clarity, TahoeCleanAir.org. I submitted my comments to the chair and also electronically to the chair for the record. For the reasons, no agency or project, including Washoe County, should make it harder for the public to escape from a wildfire. For the reasons discussed below, without first completing a cumulative, comprehensive EIS, TahoeCleanAir.org objects to Washoe County land use project approvals and future Washoe Tahoe area plan amendments that would, 1, allow ADUs on parcels under 1 acre, and 2, allow increased height, density, and coverage. This within an already dangerous public peril constrained roadway capacity environment, as well as an already dangerous town center wildfire evacuation choke point. The cumulatively comprehensive EIS must include an objective data-driven environmental and public safety impact analysis to determine the effects of past, current, and future projects and code amendments on Incline Village, Crystal Bay, the Washoe, Tahoe North and East Shore, as well as regionally. 2, an EIS must include a comprehensive roadway by roadway wildfire evacuation capacity timing analysis, utilizing the most current data and best achievable technology to determine how long it will take to get residents and visitors out of Incline Village, Crystal Bay in case of a fast-moving wildfire resulting in a no-notice evacuation. A no-notice evacuation versus a planned evacuation is discussed in my submittal. For years, the community has been requesting the TRPA, Washoe County, and other TRPA partners to produce an accurate, comprehensive roadway by roadway wildfire evacuation capacity timing analysis based on up-to-date data, utilizing the best achievable technology. Unfortunately, agencies continue to fail to do so. How much time do I have left, Amy?
I don't know. Alexandra, time? I think you got away with it, so we'll give you another 20 seconds.
Well, Dan, I just want to say this. It's not criminal. It's disgustingly abhorrent that your elected official up here, we all know who she is, continues to hold people hostage on this. And as Chief Summers said, the excuse is there's no money. I spent $100,000 on a Tahoe basin-wide evacuation analysis. It had cost the county about $40,000 or $50,000 up here. What a pitiful excuse. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, in the room. Stephen.
Sorry, I'm talking too much, but my comment is about the TRPA and the difference between sticks and carrots. I think if you look at the plan, there's too many carrots. It's too much weighted toward the developers and not enough in terms of requirements for the developers. And I'll use the example of parking. And they're talking about multi-story structures with housing for working people in which there's only one or no spaces available and that they're supposed to use public transportation. Well, I'd just like to see the lady that takes care of somebody else's home drag their equipment, their vacuum cleaner onto the public transportation to work in this community. So I think it's short-sighted. And I think if they're going to have changes to the plan, there has to be ways to include responsible development from the developers so that the needs of the people that live there are taken into account. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Helen Neff. Talking too much too.
Helen Neff, Incline Village resident. I'm in favor of affordable housing. I'm in favor of a walkable town center. But our town center is not walkable due to things like that we talked about, like speed limit and pathways and conflicts between bikes. We don't have a good transit system. So adding density and saying it will create a walkable town center is not logical without addressing street design. Planners in our area seem to separate things that are interrelated, such as evacuation, transportation, housing. They are all related. They are not separate. They have to be addressed together, or you end up with these little factions that don't work. As you said, eliminating parking restrictions for affordable housing without taking into account what the residents need for their work is not logical at all. It's not equitable planning. It is insulting to tell a landscaper you don't need a truck, to tell a plumber you don't need a truck, you don't need a parking place. All those cars are going to park on the road. Telling Incline Village that you will have a mobility hub with 200 plus parking spaces for tourists and then not giving parking to local workers is insulting. There's money to build parking on State Route 28 for visitors, and there's no money to build parking for the people that live here and work here and support our business. That's just sad. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room? I never did ask the cab.
No, skipped this last time, but.
Yeah, I'm headed for the Briar Patch. Okay. Kevin Lyons, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just have one comment. Kevin Lyons from the cab. This one's working, right? Maybe. Yeah, on the parking thing, one of the nuttiest things that I remember happening up here was when they started converting curbs into square curbs from round curbs, and they destroyed a ton of parking that people used for their trucks, for everything. They basically made it so if you don't have a high-rise car, you have problems. And of course, driving over a square curb is not recommended anyway for a car. So I've brought it up in the past. It's one of the easiest, simplest, cheapest fixes. It's just fix the curbs that went square when they should have been rounded, because rounded curbs you can drive on, they still funnel the water. Pretty simple. We'll have hundreds more parking spots if we just make that fix. They never asked us for any input, it just kind of happened. Like putting the rip wrap in the rocks and tearing up your other spots. That's all.
Okay. All right, Diane Becker.
I don't want to interfere with people speaking, so I'm going to be quick, but Roxana and I are going to speak with a couple of the staff at the county on Friday about opinions and possible alternatives to the proposed amendment to the Tahoe area plan. So our emails are on the CAB website, and anyone who could email us anything you think in advance of that time, it will be used and it will be appreciated. I would like to say that one of the things that we want to talk to them about is meeting the needs of Incline Village and Crystal Bay for workforce housing. And that means getting multi-family rental properties for people that are not affluent as a priority, in different ways that they might do that. And we've looked at how you can legally do what you can legally do. And we're going to try to talk to them about that. But anyone who has any thoughts, it would be appreciated if you could send them to us. And I'd also like to say this, when I went to the meetings, I only went to one, excuse me, of the two public meetings. The representative from TARPA said that there's no difference if they build multiple high rises that have, 20 to 40 to however many units in them versus all of the existing rights to build in these areas that are unbuildable. And I said that, I said, that's impossible for you to say that. If you can build 40 units with one development process, that's going to go much quicker than building the 1,200 units she was talking about being able to build here up in areas that she pointed to that are unbuildable because of, the terrain. In any event, I think that all of us who feel like, you would like to, should also write to the county and be sure it gets to the staff, in basically the planning staff, your opinions on whether or not it makes sense to have increased height and density while we do not have an evacuation study. For some reason, the county thinks that this is us being NIMBYs and not wanting more development. And I think almost all of us want workforce housing. I mean, we need it because we need a workforce, but we've got to know that everyone can be safely evacuated. Thank you.
All right.
Comment.
Denise Davis.
Denise Davis. I learned at the county meeting regarding the Tahoe area plan amendments, I learned that in addition to some of the increases in density, they also are asking about a decrease in density. And so this answer is from Kat Oakley at County Planning. Currently, town centers in Washoe Tahoe have a 15 unit per acre minimum density. That means anyone wanting to develop residential units of any kind in a town center would need to develop at least that density with a current maximum density of 25 units per acre. Density is calculated based on the size of a parcel being developed. So for example, if someone was developing a 0.2 acre parcel, the minimum number of units required would be 3 and the maximum allowed 5. The intent of minimum density requirements is to prevent important parcels from being underdeveloped. Developing town centers at too low a density, for example, would prevent them from becoming the walkable centers of commercial and residential activity that they're envisioned to be. However, minimum density standards can also prevent small redevelopment opportunities. For example, if someone with a 0.2 acre property wanted to add an apartment above their shop for an employee, minimum density would prevent that because it would require at least 3 units to be developed. This is the challenge that's driving the reconsideration of the current minimum density standard. Example alternative approaches would include removing minimum density, decreasing it, for example, from 15 to 10, and or allowing deed restricted housing to develop at below the minimum density. So just want to present that other side of the coin. It's not all about increasing maximums. It might also be decreasing minimums. Thank you.
It could be decreasing minimums.
Decreasing minimums, yes. So like the apartments that are on Main Street, over here by Mountain Workspace and all that, where they have an apartment above the store. Right now, they would be required to develop more units than they could actually develop on that property. So they can't do anything. Whereas if we would decrease the minimum, they could put 1 or 2 apartments above there, where right now they might be required to put 3, but there's no way to put 3 there. So they're also asking about, how do we feel about decreasing the minimums so that you could, expand up instead of out?
I don't know how I feel about decreasing the minimums. Anyone have
I
a thought?
didn't, I did not know that that was part of the proposal until it was mentioned to me. And I said, I know nothing about it and I haven't heard about it. So I guess other people haven't heard about it either. So that's why I'm mentioning it. So if you're interested in more development like that we have, there at Mountain Workspace and that kind of a thing, then we have to decrease the minimums because they can't always develop multiple apartments above a business. So.
But isn't that a mixed use development?
Yes, it would be.
Wait a minute, can we?
I'm sorry,
the
Denise.
name, Speak into the
Denise
microphone.
Davis,
No.
I believe it's still because of where it is, it still falls under these density numbers, whether it's mixed use or not. So I believe, but I'm not a planning expert. I'm just sharing some information. Sure.
You may, but can you give us your name and speak in the microphone? Thank you. Pretty basic.
Hi, Jan Martineau. I'm a 25-year full-time resident here in Incline Village. Currently, not a homeowner and at effect of trying to find affordable housing. And just one question I had, kind of discussing this last conversation you're having about your thoughts on the expansion or, how much of that additional building. What about, I'm just asking, what about all of the housing that has always been there that had in years past been able to be available to workers in the community, not having to live 2 hours away to commute up. Turning a certain number of those from Airbnbs into maybe longer term rentals. Since there really is quite a bit of housing. So just curious.
I can.
All right, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so there is a program that was publicized last week at UNR that allows, encourages people who are renting short-term to rent long-term. And they're being encouraged through cash incentives. Some could be very large in order to open up the STR market. So this is an issue that's being looked at and needs to be, more ideas need to be hatched to get that market open. This is a great point. You'd have to come up here.
Yes, over the years, he helped me buy and sell. My home that I did have is Kenville, Incline Vacation Rentals, I believe is what it is. And what's really interesting is we've talked about this in the last couple of years, and he's been really trying to encourage a lot of his folks that have worked with him for a long time that had gone to Airbnb to really consider in doing the math. And it actually ends up being, people are much happier because there's not as much traffic and effort, all this kind of thing. And a little bit more of the stability back into the Incline community.
Okay, thank you. And we do need to get back to protocol here. We've been a little loose tonight. Any other comments from the cab?
Just one quick one. Kevin Lyons from the cab, want to kind of follow up on Chris's point and the question. So the data on the short-term rentals versus second homes that are just actually unused is very interesting. So I think when we did some survey data on this in Placer County, it was maybe like 3x or 4x. There was way more houses that people were like, I don't want the bother of anything. I just want to go up there whenever I want to use it. So that would be something else to potentially target. And I think there's programs that have been done on that with things like basically renter insurance, and all the things that eliminate the hassle of doing that.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to online. Elise?
Hello, I just want to follow up and say, yes, mixed use zoning is great. It is what every community needs. We need to get back into the live above, walk around town like Europe and other East Coast areas. I watch from Crystal Bay every morning the constant stream of cars that are coming into this basin for 2 to 3 hours, and it is constant. And so it's a lose-lose situation. And I think some people realize it's a problem, but they don't realize how much of a problem it is. And that roads are 90% of our lake clarity issue, let alone, the air quality is part of the lake issue. And I'm actually, shocked that you can be somebody who's concerned about Tahoe clean air and you would not want to reduce this traffic. So we have a bit of a contradiction there. And, these working families need to be incorporated into our community. And I agree, these people need to have parking. Absolutely. So to me, the idea of having ADUs on less than an acre is a way to avoid having 65-foot buildings in the middle of our town. It's a win-win situation. The owners of the property get help with their taxes so that they can afford to, have a house that, they have an ADU, someone that can live there, they can afford to stay in town as a working family. So it's a win-win situation for the working families that own houses here as well. It helps them with their taxes that are continually increasing. Our working families and their children are having to, leave our areas. And this is causing a problem for our schools as well. We don't have as much diversity in our school. My son in high school said that 30% he thinks of his friends are having to commute up now. That is pathetic. That's terrible. We need to have places for these people that help us. They, these are people that are teachers. They are firemen. They are working at our banks. They're working at cleaning our houses, cleaning our yards, the construction, almost all the construction workers. And look at how much construction is going on. So we need to take care of this. And I agree. I don't like the idea of high-rise buildings, and they certainly should have parking if they tried to do that. They're not high-rise, but it's going to shade the neighbors. It's not a good thing. ADUs are a great way to go. We have so many garages alone or houses that are on steeper slopes that have room above or below them because they're a steep slope. TRPA is not allowing us to use those as ADUs because they say it's too sensitive a property. But that is area that is already enclosed space.
Elise, I think your time is up. I'm not sure what happened to Alexandra and timing, but I'm pretty sure we've done your 3 minutes. So I'm now going to time.
Roxana?
Together. Yes, Alexandra?
Sorry, that sound was the loudest one that I could find, but yeah, the time was up.
Okay. All right. Well, if nothing else, I have a good sense of timing. All right. And thank you for your comments, Elise. I think most of the people here, I probably shouldn't say this, but I think most of the people here probably agree with you. What we're trying to do is find the most effective way to get real workforce housing. All right, Kathy, Julian.
Thanks. Just on the issue of deed restrictions, I continually raise this point that TRPA is charged with monitoring and enforcing the deed restrictions, and they simply do not have the capacity or the resources. And I would even question if they have a real legal mandate to do that. They did an audit. Diane Becker is perhaps more knowledgeable than I on this. They did an audit last year. My reading of the audit report that is on the website was that they actually went out and asked 11 property owners to submit the information to demonstrate that they were in compliance with deed restrictions. This was post 2018, because prior to 2018, the deed restrictions were written in such a poor manner that it doesn't appear that they're terribly enforceable. But of that, they found that something like, I don't know, 5 were not yet constructed, so couldn't comply. And only 6 had information enough to make any assessment. They were in compliance, but that is such a measly piece of audit of so few properties. And also, I think their budget they had in the report was something like $44,000 a year to monitor and enforce deed restrictions. So we're building all of these changes in our code on this edifice of monitoring deed restrictions that I really question whether they're going to be able to do that or if they're motivated to do that. And how accountable will it be? So I think this requires some serious analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. Where am I? Pamela, and I won't pronounce it again, I screwed it before. Pamela?
That's okay. Yes, Pamela Sigdinis. I just wanted to underscore what Helen Neff said. I'd like to second everything that she made in her public comments. I'd also like to really focus the attention on the process here. This has been a very uneven and not particularly well run from Washoe County side of things. They have consistently taken very significant land use changes and put them in a context where people have a very difficult time getting an understanding of what exactly TRPA is asking of Incline Village, Crystal Bay. And if these are going to be really remarkably important changes to the land use in our town, there needs to be a real understanding of the analysis, both environmentally, from an evacuation point of view, and more importantly, we need to understand how are we using the existing housing units. There are many different ways that we can address this problem, but we're being forced to take a one-size-fits-all approach because what works in South Lake, which has, 20,000 people, isn't necessarily going to make sense here in Incline Village. I also really want to underscore the point that was made. We need to figure out how to advantage the people who live and work here and not the developers. We have just heard tonight that Washoe County is having a difficult time managing the infrastructure we have today. Paths, roads aren't being plowed properly. We have difficulty getting services as needed. And this is our existing population. If Washoe County is going to be taking on a much bigger set of land use changes and greater density and more population, Washoe County needs to do its homework. I ask that Washoe County take a step back, understand what the needs of the community are, and not force a bunch of land use changes that do not make sense for our community. We're smarter. We can figure out what the needs of the people are. Let's get the Incline Village folks involved. This should not be done in a vacuum between TRPA and Washoe County. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex? Unmute, please. If you're muted, you're muted.
Yeah,
there
I'm
you go.
sorry. I hope my audio is decent.
It's-
I want to also make some of the points. I think many have already been made, but these buildings, as a practical matter, to me, without any parking, would not be really adequate for the workers who we intend to live in them. For many people who live in the basin, the vehicle is actually a tool of trade. If you work in construction, if you work in landscaping, if you're servicing, cleaning commercial buildings or houses, you need to move from site to site to site. If you work at Raley's, you may have to fill in at the Raley's in South Reno one day too. And that's in addition to the other realities of living here, that sometimes our healthcare plans force us to go to Reno or to Carson because a doctor here isn't covered. So I think it's unrealistic to expect the people who would live in these 55-foot buildings to not have cars. So they will have cars, and those cars will go somewhere. They'll be parked at the rec center. They'll be parked in the Raley's parking lot, or maybe parked on the roads. And parking is illegal on many roads in the winter because of snow plowing. Also, we don't really have as much as we aspire to having a walkable town, we don't really have one. The multi-use paths, I mean, I've heard them referred to as commuter paths, that there shouldn't be pedestrians on them. So we can't quite make up our minds there. And they would need to be plowed every day in the first thing in the morning if somebody was expecting to get to work on time without a car. So I've got a real problem with that. Also, a comprehensive housing solution has to include a limitation of short-term rentals. It simply has to. We don't have a shortage of housing units in the Tahoe Basin. We have a shortage of units available for long-term rental. So that should also be a part of the plan. And it's been shown in South Lake, where they did pass Prop T, that so far at least 20% of short-term rentals were returned to the market as long-term rentals. And if you do the back of the envelope math, that 20% gets us almost the same number of units as these proposed 55-foot tall buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we have covered that. I appreciate all the comments. As Diane indicated, she and I are talking with the planning people on Friday. We're basically presenting the same presentation that we gave to the commissioners. Time has passed, so there's a little bit more added to it. We are going to be speaking as individual citizens, not as CAB, because we haven't really had a chance to run this through by everybody. But one of the things that we wanted to add to what we talked to them about are the comments that you have made tonight. And so I think we have a pretty consistent input from the community from what I hear. I know we don't represent every constituency in this particular gathering, but at least from this area, this demographic subset that comes to the CAB, we have a pretty consistent message. Thank you again for your comments. Let's go on to item number 8, the Development Hub. Alexandra, anything?
Good afternoon, Alexandra Wilson for the record. At this time, I do not have any updates that we.
A little closer to the microphone, Alexandra.
Can you guys hear me better? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. At this time, I do not have any updates for the Incline Village area.
Okay. Then let's go to the minutes, approval of the minutes. So these are the minutes for November 2024 and December 2024. Those of you who have been staying tuned to the saga of CAB minutes for the last year will be thrilled to know, along with us, that we are finally up to date on all of the minutes. And we thank Alexandra for handling that from the county side, and Chris Wood managed it from our side. So can we vote to approve the minutes or I need a motion for the minutes?
I move that we approve the November 25th and December 16th, 2024 minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. Yay. All right, board announcements. Alexandra, do you want to?
You want to do the December ones too?
What? She put them together. Did you have an issue with one or the other?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we might be able to get away with that. Okay. Before everybody leaves, I want to let you know what's coming up. So hold on for 1 second. Alexandra, would you let us know what our February meeting is about?
Yes, Roxana, Alexandra Wilson again for the record. So in February, we will have Manager Brown here to speak about the year in review for 2024 and what's upcoming for 2025. Would you like me to go into March as well?
Yes.
Okay, and for March, we have Placemate, who is coming to speak and is scheduled for March. So they are also known as Route Renters. It's a new program that was started up in Truckee, and Roxanne, if you'd like to explain in more detail kind of what their goal is.
So
I think that would.
Placemate is a service that matches people who currently have short-term rental Airbnb kinds of things with people who need long-term housing. It gives the renter, the owner, an incentive to convert their properties back. IVCBA just had a presentation this last week. It was excellent. If you went to that, but you thought of good questions afterwards, we'll be looking at it again here in March. All right. So any other board announcements?
Roxana, I had one
Yes.
more.
Okay, go ahead.
So my last update, and I did share with the cab chair last week or the previous week, our cab recordings will now be available via our Washoe County YouTube page so that anyone can access them at any time for all of our citizen advisory boards. So that's a new feature that we have, just being accessible, as well as making sure that everyone has the recording, since we do get asked to supply those often.
Great.
I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Chris Wood
No,
shouted
no,
first.
finish.
Okay.
Alexandra Denise Davis, does the YouTube video include the chat box?
That is a good question. It should, but the transcript does produce one once we print it or once we download it. I'm not sure if it does during the video. I think if it's shown during the video, it will, but it has to be shared from my screen, I believe.
Okay. Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, Alexandra, is the transcript of the meeting also available at that link or elsewhere for public consumption?
I believe YouTube can provide a link. We do it via Zoom, so I don't believe we upload it to YouTube. I have it available, but it's not a part of the official record, so it won't be available online, but people can request it.
Thank you.
All right. I think that's any other board member announcements?
I just have a request. Alexandra, Diane Becker, can you send all of the CAB members to tonight's transcript so that especially so that Roxanne and I can have it before Friday?
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I send the transcript along with the minutes to everyone, but I can send it a little bit earlier since you guys will want to compile those.
Anything like tomorrow would be appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, I can do it as soon as I can. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Anybody else? Denise, anything from Community Forum?
Community Forum does not meet this Friday because we have 5 Fridays this month. We meet on the 1st and 3rd Friday. So you get a Friday off, but we'll see you the next Friday, which is February 7th, I believe. So.
And that takes place here at
And
9
it's here
a.m.
At the library at 9 a.m.
All right, now we're to general public comment. One more chance for everybody to chime in. Anyone in the room?
I'll be brief. Sorry.
Okay.
Just need to go on the record for all those that are going to watch this on YouTube. Doug Flaherty, TahoeCleanAir.org. I just want to point out some significant deficiencies in the TRPA monitoring and compliance efforts. 3 quick examples. Steve Dolan and I the other year went up to Incline Lake where they were violating their VMPs. And Steve Sweet, the TRPA enforcement guy, was up there, and we pointed out they were bulldozing dirt into the creek, and all of the VMPs were disintegrated. And we were told by Steve Sweet, "Oh, look, we don't have enough manpower to enforce this. Besides, the Forest Service requirements for VMPs is different from, let's say, a commercial building in Incline." So basically, they're not monitoring the Forest Service, and they took no action. The second is the recent Tahoe Keys property that lingered for years with numerous Tahoe Regional Plan violations, and the TRPA knew about it for years. They did nothing. And it was Lou Feldman came forward for the developer, and they are now allowing that area at Tahoe Keys to be refurbished. It was some sort of a lodge or something. But the point was, what came out of that meeting was TRPA was not enforcing the TRPA requirements. It was right under their nose. They knew it, and they said, well, the owner's been in jail for a felony for a couple of years, so we had a hard time getting this done, and we are not an enforcement agency. So anyway, then the last major dip in their monitoring compliance responsibilities, the Tahoe Blue Event Center, which they had, I think last count, 14 compliance permit conditions that they completely ignored. And TRPA and the League to Save Lake Tahoe were on this partnership committee, and they didn't have quarterly meetings. They didn't have the annual meeting. They didn't comply with the monitoring. It was blatant. And all the attorney could say for the event center and Tahoe Douglas Visitors Authority was, well, we never said no. We just didn't comply. I think that's going to catch some big press attention, but these are examples of the failure really on the part of the TRPA to monitor and to force compliance. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else with closing comments? Elise?
I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't get that little thing to go. Doug, I have to agree with you with respect to enforcement by TRPA. It doesn't seem to happen, but even worse than that is, as much as I try to support TRPA and what they're supposed to be doing and helping, and I work with them on a regular basis, obviously, I have been 7 years trying to discourage them from supporting the use of aquatic herbicides in Lake Tahoe because they have not even taken care of the source of the problem down in the Keys with respect to nutrients coming into the channels that have the weeds that they're trying to use the aquatic herbicides on. And again, thank you to the Sierra Club, as you mentioned earlier, for winning the lawsuit against that and proving that the Hot and Water Board should not have given that exemption permit. So we do need to support Sierra Club and Toby and her efforts. Back on the ADUs, I feel that TRPA should expand the ADUs to the steeper properties that have the easily improved existing space below or above garages without increasing coverage. And with respect to the concerns of all of you on trying to get proof that we can get people out of the basin in a fire, then if we do this commuter path, instead of being a mixed use path, but truly a wide commuter path where people can use e-bikes to commute and be off the road, it will also provide 2 additional paths of egress out of the basin. So that's a win-win-win, and that's what I'd like to see. So I hope we can all stand behind that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Neil Jones.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all the comments from the various speakers on a number of matters. And as a Parks Commissioner, I really think it's terribly important that we get more of the public involved in these meetings. I recently, I believe it was around June of last year that I even found out about these meetings. And it's incredibly important for me as a Parks Commissioner to hear from the public. And when Chambers is full of people, it really is dramatic. And somehow we need to get this CAB meeting out to the public so we can get more involvement from the public, because it is incredibly important. And I'd just like to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Totally agree. And we have been talking about ways to do that. If you have specifics in mind, please let me know. So we definitely want to do that. I think we have come to the end. So a move for adjournment, please.
I second.
Oh, I didn't do that.
I'll
Okay, you
make a
first.
motion.
Okay.
Denise
thank you.
Davis, I'll move that we adjourn our meeting.
All right.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Jan, I would like to ask you a question.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, Alexandra.
You want to ask a question why I didn't return?